All right, Astros supposed to play tonight, and I'm sitting here looking at a damn weather report, and one of my biggest takes and one of the things that I've said constantly is it's an absolute disgrace that weather still factors into whether or not baseball games are played or not. I know that extreme weather a lot of times will postpone or cancel sporting events. But in this day and age, there's no excuse for there not to be a retractable roof option, especially in places like New York, Minnesota, all these other spots. And now we're in a situation, and I'm not saying that you tear down every stadium, but any stadium that was built post 2010, post 2011 that doesn't have an indoor option, it's a disgrace. It's a disgrace. And now you're in a situation where the weather could potentially give the Philadelphia Phillies a big advantage because they are thinner in the rotation. And I think it's ridiculous. I think it's absolutely ridiculous that this is even something that I'm supposed to be watching a World Series game, and I'm looking at the damn weather report in Philadelphia, crossing my fingers. It's ridiculous. I mean, it's one thing if I'm in Little League or something like that and I have to cry because I can't go pitch. But big league baseball, all this money, the networks, the fans, like this is an inconvenience to every single this is an inconvenience to the network. This is an inconvenience to the teams and the competitive integrity of the game. This is unfair, most importantly for the fans. I mean, this is not cheap. Like, who knows how many flights have been scheduled. You're making plans, so you're going to take an Uber downtown or whatever, or park and pay to park, and then all of a sudden you're going to have to go back. It's just bad all around. It's one of the bad things that baseball has going right now, and I think it's awful. If I were commissioner, you're not allowed to build a stadium unless there's a retractable roof option at this point, and that goes for Wrigley Field, etc. I don't know what more you could do. Hell, if I were Rob Manfred, the Phillies would have to forfeit this game. Bringing in Adam Spillane. I got a feeling Adam Spillane is a little more tamed in his opinion on this. Baseball Spo, Ed Adam Spillane on Twitter. He's my baseball voice of reason sometimes, although it's hard to keep me in check on this. This is a joke, though, Spo. This is a joke.
It happens all the time.
It
Everyone will be okay. Just take a breath. Take a breath real quick. Take a breath. It's gonna be fine.
I want a World Series game.
I mean, you'll get one today, maybe. You'll get one tomorrow. You'll get one Wednesday, and maybe now you get one Thursday during the Texans game. So you don't have to watch that.
Well, I got to be there. So,
they got TVs.
Well, I got to be there. Got to be at the game, man.
You don't have to be there.
But from a competitive standpoint, and I've said that this isn't new. I've been saying this for a while. Yes. I think it's a disgrace. So this isn't like me, like Mr. Astro saying that. I've said this for a long time. Hell, I want baseball fields to all be the same dimension so we can get rid of that. I think it. Why not? Let's make it like basketball. Like it's the same length everywhere. Football fields are the same. But in baseball, for whatever reason, it's basically the equivalent of, oh, the Texans are going to the Titans. Oh, they have a 100-yard field. But they're going to Jacksonville. There's a 120-yard field there. So a game so obsessed with numbers, I would be fine with all baseball fields being the same dimensions. We don't have to get into that. From a impact, like a competitive impact of this series, the Phillies benefit from this, right?
They would benefit in the short term because their rotation is a little bit in flux because they use Ranger Suarez in game 1. So they wouldn't use him until game 4 tomorrow. So they're starting Noah Syndergaard today. And that would be, it's basically going to be a bullpen game for them tonight. That's sort of the plan going into it. But if for whatever reason tonight's game doesn't get played, then all of a sudden you can have Suarez pitch game 3 tomorrow. And it gives him the extra day. He pitches game 3. And then they can bring back Aaron Nola and Zach Wheeler for games 4 and 5 on normal rest. So for them, it helps short term. Long term, it benefits the Astros because now there's no off day in between games 5 and 6. And the Astros have the deeper pitching staff, and they are much more well-suited to go 5 games in 5 days. The Phillies, 5 games in 5 days would really, really hurt them.
What did you make of the decision to go with McCullers in game 3? Was it a no-brainer?
Yeah, Dusty Baker said that they thought about using him for game 2. And the only reason that he pitched in game 4 against the Yankees was because of the whole champagne bottle thing. So if he would have been, if his elbow, if they would have felt better about his elbow, he would have started Game 3 against the Yankees. So he's been great for them. I know he didn't pitch real well against the Yankees. The circumstances weren't great. Weather wasn't real good. I mean, he's going to run into that. It looks like again tonight that the game got pushed back a little bit. He had to deal with the delay. Didn't have his slider against the Yankees in that start, but he was able to get them through 5, and it looked like maybe that wouldn't happen. So the ability for him to at least keep them in that game, and they got the game tied with him on the mound. He gave up that run, that unearned run in the 5th, but he gave them a chance to win. But he's been really good for them. He's a big game pitcher. He's made 1,000,000 starts on the road in the postseason, including in the World Series where he started Game 7 on the road. He's used to this, so I think that it's a very easy decision. Plus, you get him for Game 7 if there is a Game 7.
Justin Verlander in Game 1. Look, I'm still not. The Phillies still bore me as a baseball team. I know that's kind of that comes across as kind of jerkish, but they just do. I can't help it. They bore me, and I thought that game was more about Justin Verlander's struggles than it was anything special that the Phillies did, because the Mariners touched him up for 6 and 4 innings. For whatever reason, Justin Verlander just doesn't seem to be as sharp in the postseason. And that's not just like, I know 2017, he was phenomenal, but he hasn't been very sharp in the postseason. Should I be concerned about Justin Verlander the next time he goes out on the mound?
I don't know. It's been a weird postseason because he was not good at any point against the Mariners. But the Yankee series, the first time through the order, he struggled, but then he was absolutely dominant the last 3 innings of that start and was just tremendous. And then you look at Friday, and the first 3 innings, he was incredible. I mean, it didn't look like they could touch him, and then all of a sudden, just the stuff fell off a cliff. So I don't know why the stuff fell off a cliff. I have a theory here, a theory there. I do think you have to give the Phillies some credit because it's a very good offensive team. I think it's a better offensive team than even I gave it credit for. They are not a team that's going to strike out a lot. They put up really up and down the lineup, just a bunch of quality at bats. They're not going to beat themselves. They've got power. They hit for average. The guys at the bottom can put up big at bats. You saw what Bryson Stott did in game 2. I think he had an 11 pitch at bat that turned into a walk. That's impressive stuff for a young kid to be able to do that in that spot. So it's not the easiest lineup in the world to pitch to, but I don't know, just because of how good he looked the last 3 innings in his start against the Yankees and the first 3 innings against Philadelphia, because the whole, well, he's a choker and all that stuff. Well, then shouldn't he have been really bad the first 3 innings against the Phillies and then settled down after he gave up a bunch of runs? So I don't know.
What are your theories? You said you have a couple theories.
I just think you look at the long second inning that the Astros had, the long third inning. So he basically, I think he probably threw maybe 15 pitches or so in the span of an hour going into that 4th inning where things really started to come unglued. So I think sometimes you can just lose your rhythm and you can lose your feel for pitches. And I think maybe that's what happened. He had the comebacker that he couldn't hang on to. That completely changes the game, because if he does that, then he's out of that inning. And I don't think he had allowed a run up to that point in that game. So it's little things like that beat you. And then he just couldn't get the third out. He could not get chases. He threw some bad pitches for sure. So to me, maybe he just lost his rhythm with the way that the Astros were swinging the bat. Long second inning, long third inning. He got through his third inning very quickly. And I think sometimes that happens for a pitcher where you're just sitting around and it's just hard to stay sharp that way.
We've had you on, we have you on throughout the week. It's one of the best things we do every Wednesday at 1040. Baseball Spo joins in the loop on the Odyssey app and on Sports Radio 610. And I've maintained I'm not paying Verlander after this year, no matter what. Like, even if he'd pitch gyms, I'm not paying a 40-year-old. I'm not giving him 2-3 years, whatever. And look, we don't need to cuss and discuss whether we believe that. We got plenty of time. We got a best of 5 World Series in front of us pretty much. But do you think that the postseason performance could impact that decision more so than anything else? Like, if we see Justin Verlander go out there and look like this in his next outing, it would mean 3 out of his 4 starts were bad. Do you think that has a little bit more of an impact than anything else that we've discussed up to this point?
Maybe a little, but again, I think that's a Jim Crane decision, and I don't know if Jim Crane is going to allow 4 starts or 3 starts or whatever it may wind up being to completely just overshadow or overtake what he's done the first 28 starts of the season plus the first 15, 16 years of his career. So how much weight do you want to put on postseason starts? How much weight do you want to put onto the full body of his career? So I don't know the answer to that. That's only a Jim Crane question or James Click or whoever's running baseball ops at that point. So if he pitches great on in Game 5, assuming he pitches Game 5, then maybe that changes the equation. I don't know. I think that's a really hard question to answer.
And I mean, in fairness, if I wanted to do it no matter what, then maybe they want to do it no matter what. So it's not really like a reaction to this. I just wonder how much that could impact it. The other thing,
Well, it gets into really quick because you're about to bring it up now.
not
But
keep going, yeah.
Yeah, for everything that Dusty Baker has done, are you going to is your evaluation going to be based on how this series ends, or is it going to be based on the full body of work? I think that it kind of gets into just those are the tough decisions. It's just like how much does one game in October matter compared to what you've done for a full 6-month season or even a full career?
I always like to evaluate managers like as fair as possible. And a lot of times we have the benefit of hindsight. And when I'm on the air, when I'm talking, I try to be honest about what I thought initially, and then I try to take everything into account with Dusty. I did not. Now I think this might change, and I want to get into this with you. Like, I did not have an issue with sending Verlander back out there after the 4th, like at all. Like I thought, I didn't even, the thought didn't even cross my mind that Justin Verlander, he should be taken out. I know there's a lot of geniuses on Twitter, and maybe they felt like this from the beginning, but the thought did not cross my mind. Did you even entertain the possibility that after allowing 3 that Verlander wasn't going back out there?
No, once he got out of the 4th, I thought it was fine because again, if he had struggled at any point through the first 3 innings, then maybe the decision changes a little bit. Then maybe you have that in your head. But he got through the first 3 innings. He got through the first 3 innings on 36 pitches. I mean, it was very easy those first 3 innings, and you're going to run into a speed bump at some point in a start, and it felt like that 4th inning was the speed bump. So I had no problem, and it's early in a series. You don't want to try and tear up your bullpen that early in a series. I mean, you look, the Phillies left Nola out there. I mean, Nola gave up a bunch of runs in the 2nd inning. They left him in for the 3rd. He gave up more runs there. He gave up 5 runs through 3 innings, and they left him out there. So if you're going to criticize Dusty Baker for leaving Verlander out there, you got to do the same thing for Rob Thompson leaving Nola out there. I thought, now the one argument can be, well, maybe he could have gotten him out earlier in the 5th. Maybe you get him out in the 5th when that thing is starting to unravel, but it happens quickly. And so I had no issue with them leaving Verlander out there. I think that at some point, he's the best pitcher. He's been the best pitcher in the league the entire year. You have to trust that guy to go get outs.
Now, with that said, moving forward, I do wonder if you handle that situation different next time around. Like if the leash is a little bit tighter with Justin Verlander, because you do now have, a couple examples of stuff getting away from him in the postseason. So I do wonder, like, in fairness to Dusty, the thought didn't cross my mind. So I'm not going to criticize him. There's a lot of people, even in the comments, that, they thought different. So congratulations to you. Maybe Dusty wishes he'd listened to you, but I do like moving forward. If we see a 3-run 4th like that from Verlander in that situation, maybe Dusty is a little quicker to pull the trigger.
No, for sure. I mean, the leash changes once you get to Game 5 because now all of a sudden it's at that point it's a best 2 out of 3, or the series could even be over that night. So everything changes. Plus, there's the off day. Assuming there's no, if this game is played tonight, then you have the off day after Game 5. So everyone in the bullpen is available for this game because you have the day off the next day. So everyone's available the next day. So yeah, 100%. If he runs into trouble in the 4th inning of Game 5, like it happened in Game 1, then yeah, I do think that the leash is much, much shorter, and it should be shorter once you get to that point of the series. But Game 1, to me, you manage Game 1 differently than you manage Game 5. Rob Thompson took the different route. Rob Thompson managed Game 1 the same way that he would manage Game 5. But he also managed Game 2 a little different too.
This bullpen's really hard to figure out. That 10th inning confused me. I'm not going to lie with Dusty. He said he went with Garcia instead of Stanek because of some sort of sheet that I'm sure you'll enlighten me on. But I think, and I could be wrong because on the back end of mentioning the sheet, he said something. I feel like Dusty might have had a little bit of ALDS PTSD, and I think he would manage that game like it was going to go 18 innings or something, and he was trying to get some length out of Garcia and maybe steal some outs, which I think would be a bad decision. And I, I didn't like that Stanek was basically on call in a high pressure situation. If that was going to be the case and you trusted him there, I would have just brought him in for that whole inning.
Well, the thing is, it was about Harper. And when they mentioned the sheet before the series, in the 4 days leading up to it, they meet as a staff. They meet, Dusty Baker, the pitching coaches, baseball operations people, the analytics people. They're meeting and they're going through the Phillies and they're saying who best matches up with who. And when you're making these decisions, you're going through the lineup and you say, okay, they have Real Muto, Harper, and Castellanos due up. And basically the Astros said, who is our best matchup for Harper? And in that spot, they thought that it was Garcia compared to, with everybody else that they had available in the bullpen. They had Hunter Brown out there. They had Christian Javier out there. They had Will Smith out there. They had, there was other guys out there. Urquidy's still out there at that point. So they're going with who's the best matchup for Harper. Now, for me, I'm saying who's the best matchup for the other, if it's me in there, I'm saying who's our best matchup for Real Muto, who's our best matchup for Castellanos, who's our best matchup for Bohm, and we're just going to avoid Harper. In that spot, I'm not pitching to Harper. I am pitching to the three righties. I'll pitch around Harper. I'll see if I can get him to chase something, but I want to worry about the three righties. Their thinking and the way that they planned it out was they were more concerned about Harper and they wanted the best guy for Harper in that spot, and they felt it was Garcia. Why? They're not going to tell me. I really
it seems ridiculous to me. I think they were managing the game like it was going to go a few more extra innings.
Well, the way they were swinging the bats, I mean, they weren't doing anything offensively. So you can certainly say that we can't just assume that if we get out of the 10th inning without allowing a run, that we're going to score a run in the 10th. So they did not score a run, after the third inning in that game. So it's hard to think that, I think sometimes maybe you have to go in. I don't know. It's a weird spot to be in. Obviously, the hope was, everything changes if Abreu's able to get the last out of the 7th, because then you don't have to burn Neris in that spot, and then you have Neris for the 10th inning. And that's not on Abreu. They really asked Abreu to do a lot in that game, just like they asked Montero to do a lot. But that's where I think the game really changed.
A listener wants to know, and shout out to the listener, subscribe if you haven't, follow Adam on Twitter at Adam Spillane. Why didn't the pitching coach go talk to Verlander? A mound visit is what they're asking about.
I think with a guy like that, you don't necessarily need a mound visit. I think Maldonado went out there at one point. There are a lot of pitchers, especially of that stature, that say just stay in the dugout. So really use the mound visit almost as a timeout. So I don't know the answer to that. I don't think, and I'd have to go back and really look. I don't think that Josh Miller has made a lot of mound visits with Verlander on the mound this year. I just don't think that that's something that he really has to do.
I go back and look at that.
I don't know. I think
is there a baseball reference mound visit thing?
Well, I mean, you have to keep track of the mound visits just because you're only allowed so many per game. Yeah. But a lot of times, most of the mound visits come from the catcher. So I don't know. I don't recall a lot of mound visits though between Josh Miller and Verlander this year. But it's a good question. I just don't know the answer to it.
Cheating chatter. You knew this was coming. There's a couple of examples of cheating chatter. I can see you rolling your eyes. We might disagree on one of them. The Framber Valdez talk to me is interesting. There's talk about shoes, rubbing hands, rubbing hair, and all that type of stuff. A lot of that stuff just seems like normal pitching activity to me. And I don't know what impact shoes would have or a glove, unless you think something's in the glove. But if something's in one glove, why wouldn't you just keep that glove instead of switching gloves? The guy's going through a lot of psychological stuff. And a lot of times when psychological stuff is going on, sometimes you get superstitious and you start doing some crazy things like rubbing the ball and all that. That's nothing crazy. What do you make of this Framber talk? And could this get in his head? Because now you're putting this in the back of a guy's mind who's already overcoming all these mental hurdles. What do you make of the Framber section? And we'll get to the Maldonado part of it in a sec.
I thought nothing of the Fromber stuff. I mean, honestly, I just didn't think anything of it. I don't think that he cared. He seemed to he laughed it off really when I can get you the quote for what he said when he was asked about it on Saturday night. He didn't really seem to care. He he said that the first inning was really long, and so he just felt like, okay, long first inning. I gotta get rid of everything. New glove, new belt, new cleats. We're wiping that first inning, and he pitched really well after that. If the Phillies didn't seem to have any sort of an issue with it, then I don't think that anybody else should. And
What would
Rob
Buck
Thompson,
Showalter have done? He would have got his ear checked.
they might have, but if you don't find anything, you don't find anything. And they checked Framber Valdez multiple times in that game, and they never found anything. So if there's no smoking gun, then what are we doing? So the Phillies didn't care. No one brought it up in their clubhouse after the game. So to me, it's an internet thing, which
The Martin Maldonado thing was weird. Now, I'm not going to say, look, let me clarify. I don't think it was fishy. I don't think it was an unfair advantage, but it is weird that the day before the World Series, you have Albert Pujols send you bats. That's kind of weird.
I don't know if it's necessarily weird.
You don't think that's weird?
No, I mean,
to change the model of your bat when you're swinging the bat better than you have in a long time, you don't think that's a little bit strange?
Not really. I imagine he has a relationship with Pujols, respects Pujols, and
so why wait till the World Series to get a new bat?
I don't know.
And when I say weird, I'm not saying fishy. I just think it's kind of like
it's the World Series. It's the World Series, though. Sometimes you do weird things in the World Series to try and win the World Series. Never won a World Series before.
So you just randomly want Pujols' bat?
Hey, there's probably some hits in there.
Well, I didn't know Albert Pujols was using an illegal bat too.
I didn't know that either. That was really interesting. And he basically got
it's
routed
not
out.
Enough that he's getting 60-mile-an-hour pitches over the middle of the plate so he can hit home runs and pad his stats. Now he needs a bat that only he can use.
Though, in fairness, he's been using that bat when it was illegal for 10 years.
Yeah, it's kind of like the belly putter grandfather type of thing. I just thought it was a little bit strange. Well, and this chatter's coming. I know it annoys you.
And the only reason that it got brought up in the first place was because he told ESPN about it. If he doesn't tell ESPN about it, then nobody tells that story. MLB doesn't get involved, and he's still using the bat. I don't think anybody finds out any other way.
You think Altuve's flipped the switch? 3 hits, leadoff double. We going to see the old Altuve?
I think that they'll pitch him a little differently. You saw, he was ready for that first pitch fastball to start the game. I do think that jump started him. I think that jump started really the whole stadium on Saturday night. But
could you kind of feel it? Did it feel like just when you're in the stadium, you can feel it? I know you were there.
Yeah, you can feel it with him. Really, it's really been fascinating because remember he started just in the LCS against the Yankees. He's 0 for 24, 0 for 25 in the postseason, whatever it was in Game 2. And the stadium got louder every time he came up to the plate because people are just assuming, okay, he's going to break out of this and he's going to be the guy that we've all seen for a decade at this point. But yeah, so once he gets that double on the first pitch, and of course, first pitch, that's always going to get the crowd going a little bit. You could feel it, and I do think that it really, especially the way that Game 1 ended, they needed that kind of emotional lift. I think that he really gave it to him. Now, if you're the Phillies, you got to pitch him a little different. That first pitch fastball is not going to play because he's ready for it and he's swinging at it every single time. And no one loves the first pitch fastball hit a home run to start a game better than Jose Altuve. So if you're Noah Syndergaard tonight, maybe start him off with something a little different. Maybe throw in a slider. So that's on Real Muto and that's on Wheeler for throwing that pitch to start the game. You should never give him a first pitch fastball.
If you had to fill out, and this is weird, but if you had to fill out a World Series MVP ballot, and let's say you can only vote for Astros, from 1 to 3, what would your ballot look like right now? I know it's hard when you haven't won a series.
Framber Valdez is 1 because this is just on the World Series, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so Framber Valdez would be 1.
Tucker 2? Does it count?
They lost
the game. Mojo just get wiped away by that blown 5-run lead? Because there's never been more of an example of badass than that in like a short time. The humble, quiet guy just simply says he wants to sweep a team and play them as little as possible. Kyle Tucker's getting killed in Philadelphia. You would think that he was a member of the Dallas Cowboys or something. the way they were talking about him. And he goes out there and hits 2 jacks and it's just forgotten.
Yeah, I mean, that's what happens when you blow a 5-run lead. I don't think I would put him in there just because they lost the game. So I would
So
put
Fromber,
Framber 1. I would go Altuve 2 because, again, they won the game. And then, Bregman should be in there.
yeah, Bregman. I think Bregman should be 2.
And then also Montero. He got big outs on Saturday. He kind of got himself into a little bit of trouble.
That was a stressful 8th.
They're going to lean on him. They're going to lean on Abreu because, and the Phillies are really smart with the way that they set up their lineup, where it's Schwarber 1, and then you have the 2 righties and then Harper, because it's really hard because they want Abreu and they want Montero for Schwarber and Harper. So they've got to really face that lineup. They got to face a lot of hitters to be able to get through that. And that's what you saw them do with Abreu on Friday, and that's what they did with Montero in game 2. So
what is up with Stanek?
I don't know. I just, I know the top line number looks great. The ERA looks great. You go a little bit lower, some of the nerdy stats don't look quite as good. He gives up some traffic. Maybe they didn't like what they saw from him towards the end of the year.
I call the nerdy stats Spo stats.
Well, I don't, honestly, I don't even understand most of them. So they're even over my
probability.
Head. No, it's like FIP and XFIP and WOBA and all that good stuff. The FIP for Stanek is a little bit lower or it's higher than what it would be for Montero. So, and I know that Stanek was really good against lefties during the regular season, but over the course of his career, he has not been good against lefties. So maybe they're trying to avoid that. Maybe he's not healthy. I don't know. The one thing I know is the Astros aren't going to say why he has kind of fallen out of the mix with their high leverage reliever. So I wish I could answer that. The question has been asked, but the question has gone unanswered by Dusty Baker and everybody else.
I mean, he can't be too much of a lost cause if you're willing to bring him in a 1-run game with the runner in scoring position. That's the weird thing to me, was that he came in at all.
But at that point, though, they had no other option. I mean, so the option is Will Smith, which I don't think they wanted to do.
Or let Garcia ride it out.
Or you go with Hunter Brown or Urquidy at that point. And I don't think they wanted to get either one of them up because, for them, if you use them in that game for 1 out, then you're not using them the next day, which I don't think they were going to use them anyways, but you never know. You lose the option.
All right, so go ahead.
That's going to be whenever the postseason ends, kind of when you go back on, I don't know if autopsy is the right word to use, but
that's fine.
The reasoning of why they didn't use
this is a cancel-free program.
Well, it's not. I just don't know if it's the correct word to use, but I just don't know, why they didn't use Ryan Stanek really in the postseason, why he fell behind everybody else, why they felt like they couldn't use him at all against lefties. I think that'll be a very interesting question to find out. And again, maybe it's a health thing. Maybe, I remember there was one outing where his velocity was down, but I recall it going back up at one point. So it's one of those weird questions that no one, I think will probably ever answer.
All right. This was my biggest take of the day. I'm very intrigued to hear what you say about this. Very. Why do they not consider Vasquez at DH? And I know what you're going to say.
You already answered your question.
Huh?
You already answered your question earlier.
I know what you're going to say. You're going to talk about, the emergency catcher and if Vasquez goes in for Maldonado or whatever, then you have a situation where the pitcher spot is due up, blah, blah, blah. That's an extreme emergency though, right? Like that's a real extreme emergency. With how the DH has hit the whole postseason, shouldn't they have carried 3 catchers to the point where you could put Vasquez at DH? And at this point, with how much of a problem it is, the DH hitting, why would you not put a guy in who, when the Red Sox won the World Series, Alex Cora literally put him at first base so that he could keep his bat in the lineup. So he's battle tested. He's been there. He's performed at this level. This year, he started 1 game in the postseason, and he got the post-game interview. Why is Vasquez at DH not being discussed? Are we really just doing this because of the extreme emergency?
So there's 2 reasons. The first is obviously you lose your backup catcher, and if for whatever reason something happens to Maldonado, then you lose the DH. So I think that's one reason. The other reason is I think they like having him off the bench. I think that because if, let's say, in a tie game and there's runners on base and Maldonado's spot comes up, you at least have Vasquez back there who you can use as a pinch hitter, or you can use Vasquez as a pinch hitter at some other point. So a plate appearance from because Vasquez would probably bat seventh if you're DHing him. So if he's leading off the third inning, that's a pretty low leverage spot with nobody on base. So you're not getting the most out of that position. So
out of what, DH?
Yes. No, not basically out of what would be your best bench bullet. You're not getting anything out of that if he's coming up with nobody on base in the third inning. You know what I mean? So
I get it. I just don't. I think the reason to do it outweighs the reason not to. That's my only thing. Like I get the pushback. I just think the reason to do it, given how bad the DH situation's been, given the fact that he's been there before, given the fact that I don't know when Martin Maldonado has ever left a game, and you're essentially, with the way the DH is hitting, it's not like replacing Maldi is the biggest priority. He's hitting better than the DH is.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
To me, the reason for outweighs the reason against.
They have, though. I mean, they've lifted Maldonado quite a bit this postseason. I mean, they did it twice in the series against. They did it twice in the Mariners series. I don't know if they did it in the Yankee series, and they obviously did it in Game 1 of the World Series. So it's just a matter of, do you get more value out of him DHing him, where he's going to get maybe 2-3 plate appearances, whatever, and there might not be anybody on base, or and they might be in low leverage spots, or do you get more out of him when you can use him as a pinch hitter late in a game where you really need the offense? So I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I think it's a hard question to answer. But
who would you put at DH? You going Hensley? There's a Hensley movement going on right now, which is crazy to me.
Yeah, I would probably go with Mancini, to be honest with you. I just think
he's got that potential to just get one. He does have that potential where he could hit one.
Yeah, I think the track record is better, and plus he did have the last 2 games of the LCS in New York. I thought that he started to come around a little bit. So for me, I would probably go with Mancini. I don't think any of the options are great. I think the best option would have been Michael Brantley, but obviously, that can't happen. So I don't think there's a great option. Maybe they should have brought on a third catcher, especially since they haven't used David Hensley at any point, really since Game 1 against Seattle. I don't think he's appeared in a game since then. So if you're not going to use that spot at all, then maybe you do have the third catcher just to give you that option. I thought they would carry a third catcher in the division series. They didn't even carry a third catcher in that series when they could have the extra position player.
See, that to me was a mistake.
I was surprised. I was surprised that they went that route, especially since they had carried a third catcher in the division series both in 2021 and in 2019.
If they had a third catcher, you're going Vasquez, right?
As a DH?
Yeah.
Most likely, yeah.
Okay.
Most likely I would go Vasquez.
Maybe they should just carry the third catcher then.
Yeah, that would be a James Click question down the road. Like, why did you guys outweigh Hensley as opposed to a third catcher when Hensley again has not appeared in a game? I don't think since Game 1 against Seattle. I don't think
he'd be correct.
In the other. Okay,
that's correct. Spo, appreciate you as always. Thanks for making me smarter. If we don't have a game today, anticipate me bitching about it nonstop on Wednesday.
I imagine
you'll do it.
I imagine you'll do it if tonight's game gets delayed by 15 minutes. You'll do it.
You're the complainer about time, about length of time, Spo. That's not me. Don't project that on me.
I don't complain. What are you talking about? Just throw all these accusations at me, and I just don't appreciate it.
About game length, yeah, you've never done that.
No, never. It's not what I do. I'm very happy-go-lucky, and sunshine is bright and all that stuff. So I don't like what you just insinuated.
All right, Spo. Fingers crossed. Hopefully we get a baseball game. I appreciate you, man.
See you later.
All right, there you go. It's my guy, Adam Spillane, Baseball Spo, at Adam Spillane on Twitter, at Adam Spillane on Instagram. Astros got there's going to be at least 3 games. There could be as many as 5. What a time to be alive. What a week to be a Houston sports fan. Thanks to everyone for coming through. Fire up that Odyssey app and listen to In the Loop Monday through Friday, 10 to 2. Join the locker room on YouTube. Please subscribe to that. Trying to get this going. What are we, 2 months in? What are we, like 750 deep? Want to get up to a G before December. That's the goal. We'll keep this going. Again, there's some moving parts but I appreciate it. There's nowhere I'd rather be than with you guys. Remember, have a good day. It's serious, but it ain't that serious, and we're all in this together. Hopefully, we get an Astros baseball game. If so, we'll have the post game, and we will talk to you soon. And by we, I mean me. Me. I hate when old white guys say, "We'll talk to you later," and it's just them. I just did it. I hate myself right now. I'm gonna get ready for this game. Hopefully, if the weather allows it later.